Hi everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of October the 4th, 2021. We have a really active sky with a couple of really significant energy shifts that are going to change the way we feel, the way we experience the present, but they might also lead to the dynamic of things changing on the world stage. The way I see this energy as like the wind gaining strength and force and speed, of course, before a huge storm, and that huge storm is going to be playing out all throughout the rest of the autumn, but also December is going to be a very relevant month. So things are not in full swing yet, but the build up is definitely happening. It is getting stronger as certain very important power players in the sky are preparing to go direct. This is where things are getting really serious in all of the expression. May it be the political problems, the economic problems, the very fast pacing change of our value systems, the upgrade, if you will. But of course, because we have these very strong action-oriented planets in the sign of Libra, Mars, Mercury, and the Sun, and this is going to be a week when they hold a very tight conjunction with each other. Well, this represents that things will change legally as well. Diplomatic relationship will change, and this also affects our personal lives because our personal relationships might change. New ones might be appearing in our lives where we might use the force of the upcoming Libra new moon conjunct Mars to attract certain people, certain connections, one-on-one alliances in our lives. Or if we use the empowerment of this Mercury retrograde to fix all of those partnerships, agreements, associations that need this reconfiguration that this Mercury retrograde is providing, other relationships which were not necessarily closed or they didn't have a needed resolution, they might resurface from the more distant past. Maybe important communication discussions are gonna take place, and chances are other type of important communication, sharing of information, perhaps receiving advice or help or counseling of any kind, or maybe it is just you brainstorming, truly going back to the drawing board and figuring out the resolution of the most important problems in your life, how to get where you need to be in the immediate future, and of course the main theme of which relationship serves you in which way in your life. Important progress with all of these might take place on around the 9th of the month, when this Mercury retrograde also meets the Sun and Mars conjunction. And that can mean that information, clarity, whatever it is that you might need, or certain conclusion of your own contemplation, of your own analysis of the situation, or maybe a new connection, or anything useful information-wise might be on the table already for you to start making a choice, a decision, or something to take an action based on whatever you might receive in this period. Another very significant energy shift is Venus at the beginning of the week changing signs, leaving the sign of Scorpio and entering Sagittarius. And this energy might affect us emotionally because Venus, as she transited the sign of Scorpio, it was all about our needs, our more urgent, sometimes more primitive instinctual desires, and also being able to feel these with great intensity, the Plutonian specific singularity, if this makes sense. But in the sign of Sagittarius, she takes a totally different expression where she truly aims to the finer things in life, to the more extravagant expression. This energy kind of inspires us to dream big, to be way more philosophical, to desire more refined, more exotic things or experiences, or it is all of these things that bring us greater joy, greater satisfaction. This is also a thirst for knowledge. This energy might invite a lot of people back to school in a symbolic sense, of course, where you might really consider the need to study something which appeals to you greatly, or to refine existing studies, existing knowledge, to read, to research certain things, to tap into your philosophical side, to search for the meaning of certain really, really big philosophical questions. Of course, other people might be feeling this energy shift as a desire to travel, especially into more exotic places, international travels, long distance travels, to basically see the world. And you can imagine how these urges and desires represent a real problem right now in our present circumstances, because Sagittarius also represents the law, especially international law, travel law, everything which has to do with the legislation of borders, the separation of countries, nations. So once again, this will become a very hot topic, a very talked about and debated subject. And of course, with the Libra energy, Libra is also about law, courts of justice, fairness, non-discrimination, equality, equity, etc. And Venus is the ruling planet of Libra, so you can imagine that this will definitely be part of our lives, communication, information that we receive next week. And yet another very powerful energy shift is Pluto going direct towards the end of the week. And the way this can definitely play out on the world stage is where, government, centralized power, our leaders, the military even, all of the symbolisms of Capricorn might tighten their grip, their control, the not so favorable shadowy expression of Pluto. This is where it's gonna be one of those moments when who truly holds the power and the control, who has all the aces, is gonna become very, very evident. But also because Pluto, especially being very amplified, its shadow side, at this time is going to hold the long-term square with planetoid Eris, goddess of discord, goddess of rebellion, symbolizing the power of the people, where they cry that their voices, that their sovereign wills be heard, respected, and taken into account. This will amplify the conflict, so it means that protests, rebellions, people trying to fight the control every way possible is also going to be a main theme. But perhaps this aspect is going to be even more amplified around the Aries new moon that takes place around the 20th of October, because the moon will hold a tight conjunction with Eris and the Pluto square will be ongoing. And the sign of Aries is all about the warrior energy. It is all about standing up for what you believe in, taking action, initiation, bravery, not allowing fears to get in your way. And of course the symbolism of Eris, well, she fights against all odds. It doesn't matter who stands in her way, she still takes action. She doesn't allow that to stop her. And if that wasn't enough, this week Saturn slows down considerably, almost to a standstill. It's not gonna be this week when it goes direct, but the week after, but still a stationary Saturn provides this very specific energy of contraction, where the limitations, the restrictions, the prohibitions are gonna be felt that much more This energy can also cause a lot of frustration, a sense of urgency, and a little bit distorted reality check, if this makes sense, where, it's gonna highlight all of our problems, blockages, all of our most urgent needs that we haven't found a solution to them yet. But the best way to overcome this energy is simply to tap into our spirituality, to tap into our intuition, where we can simply know that it's gonna be okay, that things will work themselves out, even if the present moment doesn't favor this as much. Now, after this being said, let's break down this horoscope to the most relevant dates and aspects that are going to influence our lives. And of course, we begin the week with Mercury retrograde on full blast. That is going to be a moment at the very beginning of the week when Mercury still holds its square to Pluto and trine to Jupiter. So we must pay close attention to whatever issues are being raised in our lives. So Mercury in the sign of Libra, holding these two aspects simultaneously, can almost represent like us trying to weigh our options, trying to create like a mental scenario to at least try and anticipate where things might be going, where things might be leading us, how different choices and decisions can direct us into different directions. And naturally, as I said earlier, whatever problem we might have in our lives, especially regarding a relationship or a contract, for example, job, career, business. It can also be financial with Pluto and Capricorn, debts or investments, our financial plans for the future, something that we might want to purchase, something that we need to acquire, maybe even studies that we want to start. But it can also simply be our future plans in a general overview. And this is where the square with Pluto can represent basically the cons, and the trine with Jupiter the pros. One side of the scale of justice and the other side, and we're symbolically speaking weighing the pros and the cons, the compromises, the potential strings attached, and also the benefits that they hold. So this is like taking whatever information is available to us at this present moment and really try to make a good choice, a good decision based on those. Now the next day, as Pluto is going to stand still in the sky, so its symbolism is greatly amplified, that might be a very relevant moment when the shadow side, the cons of course, as I said earlier, are gonna become very, very visible. We may see, for example, our own flaws, our own weaknesses, our own powerlessness in the situation of others, or what others may communicate with us at that time may be also very reflective of our own problems. This might also cause certain tensions in any relationship. Pluto, who holds the power over who? Is the power that other people hold on you healthy, in balance? Is it at least serving you in any way, shape, or form? Or does that need a reevaluation, a fixing, so to speak, or maybe a termination of that relationship? Now, also on this day, Mercury holds a quincunx with Neptune. So, on one hand, this is a very strong intuitive empowerment. This is where your sixth senses can be very precise, very, very guiding, so to speak, but don't get lost in detail. Don't try to approach them in a very rational manner, if that makes sense. Just let your emotions, especially if you might have certain nostalgic flashbacks, if memories just resurface in your mind, well, look at the meaning behind them. Look what they want to tell you. analyze what happened in your life, how did you feel, what was basically your karma at the moment where your memories, your flashbacks might be guiding you back to. This can also represent communication with some people from the distant past, like for example an ex-partner, ex-colleague, everything that might have to do with the expression of Libra, so a partnership or an alliance or an agreement in the past, of course. Now, this can also have a really not so favorable expression because Mercury at this time does speak in tension with a very powerful Pluto, so be very careful of any kind of deception or a con, a phishing scam, the emails that you receive. Don't click on certain links. If something is being offered to you, promised to you, like a sales call, and is way too good to be true, then, listen to your gut. Question everything, double check everything, phone the bank or do whatever investigative work that you need to do before you agree to anything or pay for anything, etc. This is also the danger of impersonators. So if you might get a message or any kind of communication from like a public figure, make sure that it's not a fake profile. And it's very easy to tell the difference. Now moving on, next we have on the 6th this new moon in the sign of Libra. And this is going to be quite powerful, like most lunations of 2021. This is where the sun meets the moon in the sky, but they also meet Mars in a very tight conjunction around 13 degrees of the sign of Libra. And together they also hold a quincunx, a very tight exact quincunx, with Uranus at 13 degrees of the sign of Taurus. So this represents a big element of surprise. And this is also a very action-oriented new moon because it is perfectly conjunct Mars. Of course, Mercury is also part of this picture because they do hold a conjunction with Mercury as well, but the orb is very wide. But it's still operational, so whatever may happen around the 6th, it might be closely linked to this Mercury retrograde theme in your life. So watch what happens around that time, maybe what choices, options you are presented with, who might pop up in your life from the past, or maybe someone totally unknown, someone who might really not fit into the typical description of people you usually get connected with. Also, the circumstances how you meet or get connected might be totally outside of your comfort zone or the usual patterns that usually take place in your life. Or maybe it could be the nature of the connection, which is surprising, unusual, different to what you're used to. Now, of course, like every single new moon, this also has some very strong alchemical qualities to it. It is a really good moment to set the seeds of intention, to express that which you desire, and not just for yourself. Libra is the sign of partnerships. So if you would like to, let's say, help out a close friend of yours, someone who you truly love, someone who you care about, someone who you know would really need a little bit of, let's say, karmic boost in their lives, in the sense that maybe they need a new beginning or something new, or a resolution, a solution, something good to happen to them more than you do. And this energy is really good to basically extend our wills to favor other people as well. Especially that this new moon takes place under Pluto standing still in the sky, so your concentrated, singularly focused will, desire, ambition can be that much more powerful from an alchemical sense, from a psychological manifestation sense. And also Pluto holds a sextile with Neptune, so that is also an ongoing alchemical aspect where it kind of encourages us to dream big, to truly believe in our dreams, because we just give them life, we gave them shape and form. Also, this new moon opposes Chiron, and that represents that it can be quite powerfully healing. Maybe the person, the opportunity, the offer, the new contract we might attract in our lives can be empowering, liberating, freeing from so very many perspectives, and all of those contribute to our healing. They contribute to our independence, being able to be the king or queen of our own castles, Aries basically. So that is also a pretty good sign. This new moon also holds a trine with Saturn. This conversation is not very exact, but it is still operational and functional, and Saturn is already extremely slow, just starting to stand still. So this might represent a manifestation, this might represent help in any way, shape or form entering into our lives. Maybe for some people it's not really like a specific person, an ally, a partner, but rather it's simply the collective, like an organization, the government, anything which has to do with social solidarity in the most official way possible. Help can come from there. Good news or a potential solution or a fix can source from there, or it can simply come from the solidarity of your local community. That is also very much Saturn in the sign of Aquarius. It can be someone from the past, perhaps someone who you sacrificed for yourself. Saturn retrograde in the sign of Aquarius. It can also simply be karmic help, where the universe just sends you someone in the shape and form of like a person, a company, a new contract, legal help, or basically you find out that you're entitled to something, as in your rights. The legislation changes and it gives you like a new status which will bring some kind of advantages or solutions, or a burden being lifted off your shoulder. That can also be the expression of the Saturn trine. So from an individual perspective, I do believe that this is quite a beneficial and positive energy. It can lead to a really beautiful new beginning, or for some people, something which was like a failed beginning, or a relationship or contract or agreement, idea, plan, whatever that was, returning from the past and giving you the chance to do it the right way now. But of course, on the world stage, this might be a little bit different because of the Eris and Pluto square. It's very, very rebellious. Of course, this Libra new moon will birth new legal changes or new approaches, new solutions, new plans on the world stage as well. But this is where that Mars quincunx Uranus, it might not be taken in the right way, it might not be welcomed. You know, this is the situation where this one singular thing cannot serve the good of everyone. So regardless of what new appears, it is still gonna be contested by those people who are disadvantaged or who simply don't like it, who don't agree to it. This also speaks of really significant and symbolic legal battles being initiated at this moment. And since the expression of any new moon can be felt 6 months after even, that means that the true changes that these legal trials, legal cases, contestations, or action are going to produce are going to be felt later on, but they might be really, really significant in many ways. And also trine Saturn restrictions, limitations, the greater good, the good and safety protection of everyone in an equal way. At least that is the seed of intention here. Well, you can imagine that that will also spark controversies. Now, a day after Venus leaves Scorpio and enters Sagittarius, I've already spoken about the expression of this energy at the beginning, but this also adds a layer to the big picture because, as I said earlier, Venus in the sign of Sagittarius sparks up our desires, our passion, our interest, our love for travel, for, international communication, relations, visiting friends from other cultures, seeing the world, seeing places, especially those which are more exotic, which are more appealing, which are perhaps spiritual. Sagittarius is also religion. And because of these restrictions, you can imagine that desires of people wanting to do this are going to be met with a big no, all the restrictions. So Sagittarius is also the sign of the law, and this means that further legal cases and contestations and people fighting for their rights to travel are going to be an ongoing theme. But from a totally different perspective, this Venus in Sagittarius is quite uplifting because it makes our emotional states, our desires, more dreamy, more a little bit romantic, so to speak, more optimistic. We might find a lot of comfort, a lot of emotional security, if this makes sense, in topics which have to do with spirituality, faith, philosophies, new and perhaps revolutionary worldviews. This also represents that we might be extra curious at this time to learn about different cultures, anything which has to do with history, with space and space exploration, because that is basically the future of long distance travel, the future of Sagittarius. And even though Venus in Sagittarius is not the most grounded and realistic energy, well, it still comes as a soothing and healing ointment at this time when a lot of other things are going to be very under pressure, very heated. And a next big event is on the 9th of October when the Sun meets with Mars and Mercury retrograde in the sky. And all of these planets are in a part of the sky called Via Combusta by astrologers. It includes 13 degrees of Libra till 13 degrees of Scorpio. And this is the path of fire when relationship, emotions, important decisions, for example, are very much emphasized. This is a period of action. And with Mars, the planet of action, and also the Sun and Mars are very fiery planets, entering a very fiery place in the sky. Well, you can imagine that, there is gonna be a lot of activities, both individually and collectively, even on the world stage, with relationships. New people connecting to each other and forming alliances, old alliances breaking apart, or serious discussions, contradictions, people talking about their problems, their differences. Feelings, thoughts, judgments, opinions are gonna change very, very quickly. There will be moments of truth, moments of revelation, moments of clarity, not just with, for example, what another person thinks, but also our own inner truth is gonna play a big part of this. And also at that time, Pluto already went direct, and that represents some truth, some secret perhaps coming out, and talking about not very comfortable subjects, issues, themes, discussing about delicate subjects, perhaps certain blockages that affect our relationships. These are moments of confrontations, moments of honesty, moments of saying things directly, straightforward, not really leaving room for interpretations. Again, a very specific theme of this Mercury retrograde season in the sign of Libra. This is where the work is in progress, we're doing it, we're going with the flow. So by this time, the very end of the week, all of us are gonna have a certain kind of clarity, one that will serve us when Mercury goes direct, so around the 18th of October. But of course, because of another aspect, Mercury holds a quincunx with Uranus, and Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury, it is our higher mind. Some people might already be more than empowered with information, knowledge, the truth. They might have already made a decision at this point. So for some people, it is just a matter of when they implement it, when it comes into action, when it takes basically effect in their lives. Mercury quincunx Uranus is also always a period of synchronicities. Keep an eye open for signs, or perhaps the words and what other people communicate to you, even total strangers, might be very symbolic, as if the universe would use them to deliver you a message, and all you need to do is just interpret their words as not really coming from them, but rather from the universe, who kind of uses them as a messenger. Of course, all of this energy has financial implications as well, because Pluto in Capricorn is very much about financial power. Venus changing signs, well, Venus is also about currency and values, and basically the stock market, etc. So as she enters the sign of Sagittarius, something might skyrocket, and I'm guessing that it's cryptocurrency or investments in very futuristic technology. But as always, it might not be the best idea to buy something, make a bigger investment, especially into something electronic or software, etc. under a Mercury retrograde season. It might be a much better idea to wait until the retrograde is over. And around the 1st of October, Mercury has already went back on its shadow path. So around that time you might have much more clarity about what to purchase, when to purchase, and if there are any issues like factory problems, you might already know by then. So it is really, really helpful to wait if you can. Now also the conjunction of Sun, Mars and Mercury, and holding the quincunx with Uranus can make all of our electronic devices go haywire, software problems, errors, issues, phones might not be working well, internet problems. You know, the worst expression can even be like cyber terrorism, playing out on the world stage, of course. Also cars breaking down, glitches, errors, bugs, etc. So these are definitely going to be part of the picture. But another side of this, you know, whenever the Sun and Mars meet in the sky, that holds a danger for explosions, fire hazards, especially quincunx Uranus. Uranus is hazard. It can be sudden explosions, conflagrations of any kinds. Also, there is a danger of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, but we're already seeing this play out on the world stage. But it might get a bit more intense when Mars holds the conjunction with the Sun and Mercury. But of course, there can also be a really positive expression of this energy, because love, romance, ultimately Mars can be seen as the male principle, the conqueror, the planet of passion, and as ancient ruling planet of Scorpio, it can also have certain things to do with lust. So maybe romance is gonna appear surprisingly, unexpectedly in your life, but in a very physical, lustful, if that makes sense, manner, or someone will want to convince you, be very, very persuasive, attract you, seduce you, etc., etc. Especially that in the very end of the week, Dark Moon Lilith from the sign of Gemini, the lovers, the expert communicator, the wizard of words and way of expression, holds a trine with another male principle, a dwarf planet named Makemake at 7 degrees of the sign of Libra. Now, Makemake was the Easter Island god of fertility, so creativity, and the male creative principle, if that makes sense, is also very part of its symbolism. And when these two energies meet, well, that can give way to, well, whatever you seek also seeks you in any way, shape, or form. But like for every Mercury retrograde period, especially in Libra, a romantic declaration or someone offering you their hearts or anything which has to do with the promise of a partnership or commitment is absolutely wonderful, but you should just process it, take it in, analyze it, look at where this can potentially lead you under this Mercury retrograde season. And after it goes direct, well, that might be a moment when you will have enough clarity to make the commitment or not to. And also the very end of the week might be very significant from a numerological perspective, because it's the 10th of the 10th, where Pluto has just gone direct also in the 10th house, as in Capricorn, the midheaven. So I'm pretty sure that from a numerological perspective, this does have some kind of meaning or symbolism, or this might be some kind of a gateway for another very important energy shift. And what I forgot to say is also when Pluto starts going direct, so around the 8th and 9th, we may feel a lot of like a physical discomfort, we may feel bone aches, spine problems, neck pains, everything which has to do with our bones and joints, so don't panic at that time if you might be experiencing all of this. And another thing I would like to mention is that exactly because the Sun, Mars and Mercury conjunction in the part of the sky called Via Combusta, we might feel that a lot of people want to intervene in our lives. We might be a little bit over-flooded with communication, requests of help and favors perhaps, or people just advising us, giving us feedback without us necessarily asking for that. There can also be a lot of good intent coming from others, but this can also feel quite stressful, quite overwhelming. But know that this is the specifics of the period, so basically go with the flow, because it will get much quieter when Mars leaves this part of the sky. So this concludes this week's horoscope. Thank you so much for listening. I wish everyone a blessed and magical new moon. Be sure to plant a seed of intention out there into the universe for yourself or for someone who you love deeply. And if you'd like to support my work, you can donate on the PayPal link in the description below. Thank you so much for everyone who has donated and supported my work. And of course, thank you so much for listening. Until next time, bye for now.